you planning to stay at Lapoint surf camps in Costa Rica, or are you just curious to know what it's like staying there? I booked a 1-week stay at Lapoint and I ended up extending my stay every week for a month until I had to go back home to Europe. Now, after spending a full month at the camp, I'm here to share my experience so that you get a taste of what it's like staying here. Apart from sharing what it's like staying at the camp, I will also talk about the surf lessons, and what you can do nearby the camp, like good restaurants and bars and shopping that you can't miss. I will also talk about and show you clips from a day trip that I recommend. At the end of this video, I have a little bonus tip for you. If you want to find out how you can get a discount code for your stay at Lapoint camps and some other good benefits, then make sure you stay around until the end of this video for the bonus tip. I just want to start off by saying that this is not a sponsored video. I just really happen to like Lapoint surf camps. I've stayed with them in Bali, Costa Rica and Portugal, and the experience has always been really great. I think that you get very good value for your money, and I'm soon gonna go through exactly what you get and what it costs. The Lapoint surf camp in Costa Rica is located in a small town called Santa Teresa. I will talk more about Santa Teresa a bit more in general when I talk about what you can do nearby the camp, but for now let's just jump straight into the camp. When you first walk through the gates of the camp, what you see is a pool and a common area with tables and a bar and sofas. This is where people usually hang out together when they're at the camp, and it's also where breakfast, lunch and dinner is served. It's a very nice area to just relax during the day, and then some nights different activities and pre-parties are also arranged in this area. This common area is sort of secluded by plants and trees, so it feels kind of private and peaceful. Behind those trees and plants, if you walk up the stairs of a small hill, you get to where the bungalows and the dorms are. There are a few different bungalows and most of them fit 6 people. It's perfect to stay in a dorm if you're on a budget or if you're traveling solo and you want to make new friends. I myself was traveling solo and I stayed in one of the dorms. There are also other types of rooms at the camp if you don't want to stay in one of the dorms. Maybe you're a couple traveling together or just 2 friends who want a bit of privacy. I didn't stay in any of the private rooms, so I'm not sure exactly where on the camp they are located, but there are both double rooms and twin rooms. And if you don't think that's spacious enough, you can even book a private bungalow. At the surf camp, you can also find a shed with surfboards that you will be using during your surf lessons. And you can also borrow them if you want to go out surfing on your own, as long as you have booked one of the surf packages and not just a stay that doesn't include surf. Okay, now that you have an idea of what the surf camp looks like, let's talk about what's included when staying here. You can choose different lengths for your stay, and I think you need to book full weeks. So like 1 full week, 2 full weeks, 3 full weeks, and so on. I'm not 100% sure about this though, so do your own research, and I'm gonna talk about what's included in a 1-week stay. What's included depends a bit on what package you choose and when you book your stay. There's one essential package, which is the most basic package, and that package includes 7 nights of accommodation, 7 breakfasts and 5 dinners. From what I remember, the food is quite traditional, like traditional Costa Rican food. A lot of rice, black beans, fried bananas and lots of yummy fruits. Doesn't sound that tempting maybe, but it's actually really good. The other 3 packages they have also includes this, but they also include some additional things depending on the package you choose. I chose the regular surf camp package. That package also included 5 surf lessons and also the option to borrow a surfboard if I wanted to go out surfing on my own during the day. It also included surf theory, which I used to think was very boring, but the more I've surfed, the more I understand how important surf theory is to make you progress in your surfing. So now that I'm a bit older and wiser, I actually find it super helpful and interesting. There's also an intensive surf camp package, which is for those that want to surf a bit more. That one includes 10 lessons per week instead of 5 lessons. And then lastly, there's also a surf camp package that includes yoga lessons. I personally like the regular surf camp package the best. Even if I love surfing and yoga, I do get quite tired after a surf session, so I just prefer to do some stretching on my own and then spend the rest of the day doing other things, like exploring the area or just relaxing to give my body some rest. The price you pay depends on the package you choose and what week you decide to go. Looking at their website today, you can get the regular surf camp package from 867 euros for a 1-week stay. But you might be paying up to a couple of €100 more depending on what week you go and what package you choose, like I said. Now that you know what's included in a 1-week stay, I want to talk a bit about the experience of staying at Lapoint surf camps in Santa Teresa. I think Lapoint does a great job of creating a fun and social atmosphere that makes it easy to connect with other people. Whether you come alone or with friends, you will quickly feel part of the group. The camp is designed to bring people together. The first day they organized a welcome activity for people to get to know each other, and then throughout the week they organized different activities for anyone who wanted to participate, like watching the sunset on the beach, going into town, movie nights, party nights. They also had an activity board with extra options for excursions where you could sign up and go on day trips together. Apart from the activities, on most days we would also eat breakfast and dinner together where we could chat with each other and get to know each other better and maybe make plans together for the day. The guests that stay here vary a bit in gender, age and where they are from. When I was here, I think there was a 50-50 mix between men and women between the ages of maybe 18 to 35. Something like that. Most people were from Scandinavia, Switzerland and Germany, but there were also people from other parts of Europe and also a few Americans. I think a third of us were solo travelers. There were like 1 or 2 couples and then some were groups of friends, usually groups of 2. So if you're thinking about booking a surf trip but you're worried about traveling alone, I can honestly say that you don't have to be worried if you go with Lapoint because they make it very easy to meet people. I think it helps that people stay for at least a full week. Everyone arrives on the same day. People don't come and leave throughout the week. You become a bit closer to each other when you're the same people staying there throughout the week and you get to share the same experience together. It's not like this at all surf camps. I've also stayed at surf camps where people come and go throughout the week. I've had great experiences at those surf camps as well. It's just that the social experience is not as good. Okay. Now let's talk about the most fun part, the surf in Santa Teresa and the surf lessons with Lapoint surf camps. So like I said a bit earlier in this video, the regular surf package that I booked included 5 surf lessons in a 1-week stay. When you book your package, you get to choose what level of surfer you think you are. They have level 1, 2 and 3, where level 1 is for complete beginners who are either completely new to surfing or have just surfed a couple of times before and are surfing in the white water. Level 2 is for those that are starting to go out to the lineup to catch unbroken waves. And level 3 is for those that are a bit more advanced. I think I started in level 1 and after a few lessons I moved to level 2. I was there in the month of February and we would have our surf lessons in the mornings. We were too big of a group at the surf camp to all go surfing at the same time, so we were divided into 2 groups where one group would go very early in the morning, like at around 6 o'clock. If you were in this group, you got to surf in the beautiful sunrise. The second group would go a bit later in the morning after breakfast. I think around 9 o'clock was when we left the camp. I'm not a morning person, so I would always try my best to get a spot in the later group. If I was put in the early group, I would usually try to change with someone from the later group. And that was usually not a problem because most people wanted to surf in the early session anyways. There were 2 different spots that they would take us to. Most days we would walk down to Playa Carmen, which is like a 5-minute walk from the camp. Some days we would take the car to a spot that is a bit further away, which is called Playa Hermosa. It was maybe 20 to 30 minutes by car, and I think the ride was a little bit longer on the way back because the traffic was usually a bit heavier. Both Playa Carmen and Playa Hermosa have sand bottom, which is great for beginners. In general, Playa Carmen is considered the most beginner-friendly spot out of these 2 spots. The lessons were 2 hours long, but we didn't spend the full 2 hours in the water. We would start with a warm-up and then we would go through some theory, safety, and the current surf conditions. I think it was good to do this before every surf session because it sort of made you get this programmed into your brain that it's something you should always do before every surf session, even when you go out on your own. You should always do a warm-up, you should always consider different safety aspects, and you should always check the conditions before you go out into the water. It's not uncommon that some surf schools skip these steps, but I think they are very important steps to get better at surfing and surfing safely. After the warm-up and theory, we would go into the water, and I think we were about 2 students per teacher. The teachers were great. They were nice, helpful, and gave concrete tips of what I needed to do to improve. It was easier said than done, of course, but it's always good to know what you need to work on to get better. Most of the time they would push me into the waves because I would struggle to catch the waves on my own. I could catch the whitewater waves on my own, but I was struggling to catch the unbroken waves by myself. So at the start of my trip, I was surfing whitewater waves, just going straight forward. And 4 weeks later, at the end of my trip, I was surfing small, mellow, unbroken waves that I was getting pushed into by a teacher. And I was able to ride a little bit on the shoulder of the wave, so going a little bit to the side and not just straight forward. A bit wobbly and still having that bent back that beginners tend to have. A few times I also borrowed a surfboard from Lapoint surf camps, and I would go surfing in the afternoon with people from the surf camp. The afternoons were usually a bit more difficult because the conditions were a bit more tricky. The conditions in the afternoons were usually not as good as in the mornings. Mornings usually tend to be better at many tropical destinations because the mornings tend to be less windy. More wind means more choppy waves. I mostly stayed in the whitewater. Going further out scared me a bit. I was still very much in the beginning of my surfing journey at this time. I actually did this trip back in 2021. If I would go back now, I think I would be fine to go out to the lineup, but back then I just wasn't ready. I think it's very important to know your limits so that you don't risk hurting yourself or hurting others. You should never go out in conditions where you don't feel safe or comfortable. It's totally fine to stay in the whitewater and practice your pop-ups. I actually think practicing your pop-ups in whitewater is a very good thing to focus on at the beginning of your surfing journey rather than just rushing out to the lineup. In the lineup, you're not going to catch as many waves as in the whitewater, and therefore you're not going to get as much practice as you do in the whitewater. The whitewater waves are approaching all the time, so you have plenty of opportunities to practice. If you're in the lineup surfing unbroken waves, you might only catch a handful of waves during a session, so you're just not going to get as much practice riding and catching the waves because you're not going to catch as many waves as if you would in the whitewater. So what do you do besides surfing or hanging out at the surf camp? Let's start by looking at where in Santa Teresa the surf camp is located. Santa Teresa is a small town that is mostly spread out along one main dirt road that goes along the coast from around Playa Malpay to Playa Hermosa. It takes around 30 minutes to drive through the whole town, and Lapoint Surf Camp is located in the south, just a few minutes of walking from where the town gets a bit more busy. So it feels a bit private and calm while still being very close to the action. Most people rent ATVs to get around, or they simply just walk. I did see a lot of people wearing sunglasses and masks when riding the ATVs. Maybe due to COVID, but I think also because the roads are not paved, so it gets very dirty from the road, and that's obviously dirty air that you do not want to breathe in. If you do rent an ATV, make sure to drive carefully. Of course, also make sure you have a good travel insurance just in case something happens when driving or when surfing or when doing something else. Alright, so Santa Teresa is very good on food, so let's start with that topic. One of the first places you see when walking from the camp, if you walk up north, is the bakery. They have baked goods and coffee, but also sandwiches, salads, tacos, pizzas, smoothie bowls, pancakes, you name it. It's a great spot for all kinds of meals, from breakfast to lunch to dinner. If you walk a bit further north, maybe just like a minute or two, you will stumble upon a place called Taco Corner. It's a simple place, but they have amazing tacos for a reasonable price, being Costa Rica. Costa Rica in general is one of the more expensive countries to visit in Central America. I did not know this before going, so to me that was a bit of a shock. But anyways, it was still not too bad. If you continue walking further north for 5 minutes, you get to a place where the road turns a bit, and at the end of that turn you will find a restaurant called Katana Asian Cuisine. This is a dinner spot, and to this day I don't think I've had better sushi in my life that I've had at this place. I only went once though, because the food is a bit on the pricier side, but I definitely think you should try it. Another 5-minute walk up north, you will find Banana Beach Restaurant. I didn't eat here, but I went for drinks. The restaurant is located just by the beach, so you have an amazing view of the ocean. It's a perfect spot for watching the sunset, eating something after a surf session, and having some cocktails. Okay, so these 4 restaurants are the restaurants that I think are within reasonable walking distance from Lapoint surf camps. There are also 2 other spots that I really like, but they are about a 40-minute walk from the camp. So if you're not up for walking that far, you might want to take an ATV there. But honestly, I do recommend you to spend a day walking up to one of these restaurants from Lapoint surf camps. You can make plenty of stops along the way and just explore Santa Teresa. I did this for one day, and I stopped at different clothing stores, which was very entertaining for me. So the restaurants that you will find a bit further from the camp that I recommend are Eat Street and Annie's Bowls and Salads. Eat Street is a food market with different kitchens, so you order from the kitchen that has the type of food you like. One kitchen has brunch options, for example, with the smoothie bowls, and another has burgers on the menu. There are a couple of different kitchens to choose from, but then everyone sits in the same area. So if your friends choose to order food from a different kitchen than you can still sit together. And then Annie's Bowls and Salads is more a classical brunch spot that has a healthy vibe. What I did during this trip, apart from surfing and eating and hanging out at the surf camp, was to go to the beach to take pictures and film some videos. Both the sunrise and the sunsets were so beautiful, and I also did some shopping, like I mentioned. I bought a very cute swimsuit for surfing with long arms at Pacific Wolf Factory. They have the cutest swimwear for women and also clothing. One afternoon, everyone from the surf camp also went to Hotel Vista de Olas. It's on top of a hill, and it has a pool with an amazing view of the ocean. There's also a bar in the pool itself, so you order drinks by standing in the pool. We had the whole place to ourselves, where we enjoyed the sunset and drinks. I think it was Lapoint that organized this, but honestly I can't really remember. And one night, on Valentine's actually, we were a group of girls from the camp who organized a picnic at the beach. A day trip that I recommend you to do if you're in Santa Teresa is to take a tour to Tortuga Island. This was one of the activities that you could book with help from Lapoint, so a few of us from the camp booked it and we went together. Lapoint organized the transfer to the harbor, and from there we took a boat to Tortuga Island. We did some snorkeling stops on the way. You could also buy freshly caught and made ceviche from local fishermen while on the boat, and On the island we had some food, played some volleyball, and just tanned and swam in the blue waters. There were other guests on the boat, and I even made a friend on the boat that lives in the same city as my grandmother in another country. So yeah, very fun and random. We're getting towards the end of this video, but before ending it, I have a bonus tip for you. If you want to get a discount for your stay at Lapoint surf camps, you can go to their website and join their loyalty program. On your first trip with them as a loyalty member, you get a €30 discount, and the more you travel with them, the higher discounts you can get. So they have different membership tiers, and if you look at the family membership tier, which is currently the highest tier, you always get a 15% discount on all travels, sometimes even 20%. To get to this tier, you need to have booked at least 3 trips with them. But even if you've only traveled with them once or twice before, it says here that you can get a 10% discount, which is also pretty decent. I will leave a link down below to this page where you can read more about the loyalty program. Of course, conditions might change in the future, but these are at least the conditions today. Lastly, like I mentioned a bit earlier in this video, learning about surf theory and safety is a great way to improve your surfing faster. That's why I put together a surfing basics guide with the information I think you need to get started with surfing, and it's free. It's the kind of information I wish I would have had when I started my surfing journey. If you want to get it, I will leave a link to the guide in the description down below. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it made you excited and a bit more prepared to surf in Santa Teresa.